Hello, family. Pastor George here, your pastor of stewardship, finance, and community engagement. You guys, we have someone coming. They're not overweight, but he's a heavyweight in the area of finances. We're going to be going over business growth and also how to get capital from financial institutions. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Hello, family. Pastor George here, ready for another exciting episode of SET-4-LIFE. Hey, guys, you know what we're going to be talking about today? We're talking about getting all your financing and getting things in order. So, hey, before I even introduce our guests, I want everyone to give me a high five. That means think about 5 people that you need to send this to help them increase their personal business and just business in general. But our guest today is actually not a guest. He's actually a co-host. He's been here and he's helped several people. And by the way, I want to give him a shout out. How are you doing, Everett?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great today, Pastor George.
I'm so glad you're here. Can you tell us just a little bit, for the people that don't know, just a little bit about yourself? And then I want to find out a little bit more about Lendistry. But let's first start off with you.
Yeah, so I'm a Washington, D.C. kid. Been in finance for roughly about 23 years. Came to California to run North Orange County market for Wells Fargo and started building Lendistry in 2015. Right. 2 kids, twin girls, they're 13. They're the happiness, the joy, and the struggle right. that 13-year-olds are. And we live in Studio City, so we're in L.A. Spend some time in Orange County. Most of the time I'm working. I try to travel, right. business and personal, and whatever I can do.
That's good. And also, one of the things we have in common, obviously, is that we both have twins. So in that area. But also, one of the things that just has really been beneficial is your heart for helping people in the community and everything. So I also want to find out a little bit more about Lendistry. But first of all, I was on the internet one day, man. I look on there and I'm like, is that Everett? So Everett was when you were testifying. Yeah. Before it was Congress or the Senate, just and watching that. Can you tell us a little bit about how that came about?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, myself personally as a leader, I've always tried to be behind the scenes and helping people. I have a specific kind of interest in systemic credit and how to improve it and how to help with programs and different things like that. As Lendistry started to grow during the pandemic and then after the unfortunate kind of George Floyd plus events that created the social unrest, I think lots of leaders were looking for a Black-led leader who knew something about finance, could respond to some of the economic times we've had in the past and current. And so what started out as me helping and kind of advising on programs and different things became an opportunity for me to kind of help talk to our congressmen and women about maybe shaping some of the laws and some of the things that they're trying to do as they try to move forward. Somewhere between trying to rebuild America, trying to help Black small businesses be able to take advantage of the different programs that were there in the past and those in the present and the future. And then also just trying to think about different ways as we think about credit as we move forward, which, we're trying to not only offer the traditional lending opportunities, but also some non-traditional ones that will fit PPP exposed kind of the traditional lending environment to the fact that it's not servicing everybody. And so I had an opportunity and still have an opportunity to continue to help change the narrative and therefore change some of the rules and regulations.
Right, and we're going to get into this in a minute. So guys, just by the way, we did a show in the past where we did the PPP, Paycheck Protection Program, where we actually did a Zoom call where we walked through how you get the money. And we helped so many people with that. And just in doing these and all these programs, California, also type in the chat if there's anything that we helped you with there, because we're going to have several other ones we're going to do. But I think it's important to kind of find out. What were some of the results and how much was distributed with that with you and Lendistry in those areas? Like, how did that work with the PPP and all that?
Yeah, I mean, so we originally started PPP like many lenders to kind of help those in your portfolio. Right. So we finance a significant amount of underserved or undercapitalized businesses with a concentration on African American, Hispanic, Latinos, and those that are in what are defined as investment areas. So you can call it impoverished areas, areas where there's some high poverty rates, different things like that. But those are kind of our primary three concentrations. We do finance everybody, and we do finance nationally, but those are kind of where we're focused. So we started PPP with an intent to help those same businesses. Right. And then we started getting calls from some of our clients, our partners or banks across the U.S., and they said, would you help us out, and would you be willing to provide PPP loans to our customers? One thing kind of led to another, and as a technology company, we started to focus on the customer experience. We started focusing on some of the rule changes. We were on the other side, we were advocating for sole proprietors and others who unfortunately had to come kind of late to the game because the rules were rolled out pretty late for them. And then we just kind of became one of those go-to lenders.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. And I'm not you guys. I'm doing a good job of not interrupting, but I have to because he's being too humble. Right. You guys, there's what you said in front of the house when you were talking to them is that there's a disparity between African American minorities and the ability to get lending. Sure. And then you help do that. So I just want to make sure that that number one, that's said. Yeah. So when one talk about disparity and then how we can bridge that gap by helping in those areas. So obviously so can you tell us a little bit about disparity as far as lending is to minorities? I
mean, I think overall the challenge with the traditional lending is just that we haven't been able to find that connectivity and build that rapport, right? Traditional lending isn't always in the neighborhood. They don't have the people who look like the neighborhood, and so they're not culturally competent, right? And then on top of that, the systems aren't what they need to be, right? And so we started to really focus on that and say, like, let us kind of take that on for you, traditional lender, and let us get into the neighborhood. So
because maybe they don't understand the neighborhood. But then the second one is that everybody is that you guys heard that pending thing, like where everybody was pending. Right. So like you also help with the. I'm going to call it the flow, but I want you to tell us. Yeah. How did you get the process to where somebody fills out an application and then get the money? You know what I mean, like in that area.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, one as a small business owner, I kind of can connect with the people, but the truth is what we did is we just started asking the businesses, how could we make this better? And so then we just started going through iteration after iteration after iteration. By the end of the iteration, we were the number 8 largest PPP lender in the country. We had financed over 200,000 businesses, and we were larger than most of the major banks in terms of final output. Right. And I think that kind of set the stage, right? There's this black-led lender in LA that happened to do $3.9 billion in PPP loans, and people are like, well, wait a second, hold on. You're above Wells Fargo, you're above some of these national banks. Exactly how did that happen? But to your question, we just started asking the businesses, what do you need? What do you need us to do? And the team rolled up their sleeves and they just said, all hands on deck, by any means necessary.
Right. So first of all, I want to thank you. So just so you know, our interaction with you is that also here at our church we have a we have a community development corporation. It's called Champions for Progress. So that's one of the things we work with partnerships. So now everybody, that's one of the things I want to talk to you about is that number one is that you said you didn't say 3 million, you said $3 billion. And that's in distributing money to businesses to help them go. It's like blood to their vein and doing that for a business. So in doing that, also when you said, black owned and everything like this, you kept saying, you keep using a term CDFI and everything like that. Can you explain what that is? And then right after that, I want you guys to think about 5 people because I want to go into businesses and how we're going to get them funded immediately. But we want to understand how these happen and how they work. But what's a CDFI?
Yeah, so CDFI is a Community Development Financial Institution.
Community Development Financial Institution.
Yep, created in 1994. The program was created in 1994 by Treasury because they recognized that banks couldn't do everything. So it could be either focus on race, it could be focused on area like rural businesses, but each one of us chooses kind of our mandate. And generally, we choose our location. I mean, we're national now, but initially we were hyper local. We were Southern California, and then we started to expand from there. But these are different institutions, and they can help you with microloans. They can help you with technical assistance if you need it, maybe credit reports or financials. They could help you with bigger loans, like we do loan sizes from $10,000 to $5 million. Right. So it just depends on kind of what you're looking for. But I think the key to the small business is understanding that there's a capital continuum. And once you start to understand the capital continuum, like this is where I'm at in the beginning. I go to maybe one of the CDFIs that provides startup financing. Then I grow. Then I need to get somebody who does kind of micro to middle financing, which generally is defined as less than $100,000. Then I go to the next stage, which is today is probably somewhere in the range of 100,000 to a couple $1,000,000. And then after that, you become bankable. And look, sometimes you go back down and you have to kind of restart or market conditions change, you have a pandemic or whatever, and then you build back up. And so businesses, it's a curved road. But it's important that the small business owners know kind of the different CDFIs in their neighborhoods or in their communities and who's serving them.
I got you. So what are some programs that you do to help businesses grow?
Yeah. So, I mean, we've done a couple of them. So, one, we started going to various cities, states, and counties. Well, I should say cities, counties, and states. And we said, look, you have pandemic money, right? And so in the beginning, it was related to CARES Act 1, now it's CARES Act 2, and you'll hear people talk about AARP, which is not the retirement thing. But anyway, that money we leveraged to help small businesses in terms of making sure that they could either keep their doors open or lights open. 2, so that they could get the PPE or different things related to COVID.
Right.
And then 3, now it's kind of used restoratively. And so to give you some examples, we did that programs for New York City, $100 million there, New York State, $800 million there, Pennsylvania, $280 million, California, we have a variety of different programs in California, but we're right around $4 billion deployed.
$4 billion deployed?
Yeah.
And that was remember, a lot of that was that Cal grant.
Yeah, Small Business California Relief Grant, yeah.
Yeah, people come up to me this day and say, hey, I was in round, but some people give out rounds like they boxing. Right. How many rounds was that in that? Some people give out that. I gave
9
5 rounds.
Nine rounds.
9 rounds.
Yeah.
Hey, just stay in there until you make sure you just don't get knocked out. So,
well, I mean, so if you go back to talking about tech and you go back to talking about knowing where the people are at, the reason why I really like California, what we did is we actually built a network of partners. We had about 60 different partners across the state. And so we started to think about the things that we couldn't do. Like we don't speak all the languages. Obviously, it's a big state, a lot of different languages. We couldn't cover all of California. And then what we wanted to do is we wanted to build something that was uniform, which means everybody goes through the same process. Because one of the things that's missing in small business is that community rapport. Like Pastor George calls somebody else or his friend over here or small business over here. But because you might have already been through the process, you could actually tell them what the process is. And then you could also say, hey, just do this on your cell phone. You don't have to go find a desktop, which, sometimes in some of our underserved communities, there's no desktop, right? There's no desktop in the home. There's no desktop in the business. They got a cell phone. They might have a laptop. Starbucks might be their office. And so we were really proud of that because in 15 days, we took 344,000 applications.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, but I want to go back to business. So
sure.
What should a business do? What are some things a business should do?
Yeah.
To kind of do things. So I'm going to start with getting a relationship.
Yeah.
And what are some things a business should do to kind of get financing?
I mean, I think it's always important to know where to start. And so I think when you start, you got to have a plan. You got to know where you're going. There's several business consultants, business advisors, small business development companies, women's business centers, WBCs. There's all these business service organizations. That's why we started to build the partnerships because when we started surveying the businesses, what we recognized is that they didn't know what are called BSOs, business service organizations.
Right.
Like they might not know to come to Champions for Progress to learn about marketing or credit or other things that we've done. And so we've got to get that down pat first because you're either starting a business or you're going through cycles. There's no static in business. It does not exist. And so it's important that the small business owner kind of knows the resources to go to. Then the second thing is just kind of understand how it works. This is what I've always said to people. Banks are like any other company, right? So when you think about Dunkin' Donuts, right, you don't go in there for pizza. And there's no sign on the door that says we don't sell pizza. There's just a sign that says Dunkin' Donuts. But if you ask somebody, what do I go to Dunkin' Donuts for? They say donuts and coffee. Right. And then when you talk to people about the banks, I tell them, look, there's no sign on the door that says we don't do auto lending, we don't do small business lending, we don't do residential lending. It just is a bank. Right. So you got to walk in there, you got to understand what that individual bank does, and does it work for you? Small businesses have to take that extra step to ask a couple more questions, right? Because they have to say, I'm a small business that does this. Do you finance this? And everybody's not going to say yes. Because if you just say, am I a small business? They might say, yes, we do small business financing. But you've got to say, I'm a small business that does, that's a hairdresser.
Their niche. That's a great example. So first is we want to find out with businesses.
Yep.
And we already teach this. We did a whole building business back better.
That's right.
And we have, so also you guys in the chat will write down also on our videos, we went over all the marketing, operations, new products and services, and financial dashboards. So we walk through business class with people. But then getting a relation with the bank and finding out what that bank does.
That's right.
There's banks that specialize in business lending.
Yep.
There's one that specializes in home loans and auto. And then there's just a level of specialty. So finding out which bank best serves you for your business. Then as far as business, how do people know, like if they'll say, hey, maybe they don't even know what the difference between a grant is and what a loan is. I want you to say that. But then when you go to the bank, how much should someone ask to lend, or what are some guidelines?
So again, I think that's another question too. I think it's what industries do you lend in? What revenue are you looking for? And then how much money do you lend? Now on the other side, and this conversation starts day one, right?
That's good.
But on the other side, I actually don't think that a business should expect to get financed by that bank. Banks are, if we could put it in kind of educational terms, you go to junior high school, then you go to high school. If you're lucky, you go to college. And then if you're lucky, you go to get a secondary degree. Wow. Well, banks will kind of be like going to college, right? And when you're starting a business, you're probably in junior high school. I mean, it's not to offend anybody. You might have a significant amount of industry experience and things like that. There's just certain things you haven't learned yet because you just started your business. And so really the first stage of business building should be that you self-fund it if you're lucky enough, which means we tell people don't quit your day job.
You mean save the money, actually?
Save the money, right? I know you have classes on that, so I know where you're headed.
No, but I want you to say it. Go ahead.
Save your money. Specifically, we generally tell you to have somewhere between 6 and 12 months of reserves of your personal expenses and the business expenses. Again, you got to go to get the technical assistance to actually create a budget. So you're just not making up the numbers, right? And somebody should poke holes in that budget. So the other thing, I just want to go back to technical assistance really quickly, or business advising. I would suggest you at least go through it twice. First time you're learning terms, you're hearing acronyms, you're kind of seeing what's going on. And if you still have your job, then you can start to look at your job differently. Like, okay, exactly how do we do FedEx and how do we do these things? Because now I'm gonna start having to pay for FedEx. So I wanna know exactly how it works. Right. Or I'm gonna have to understand what it's like when someone is sick and I gotta cover for them. Or when I thought I was going to take a vacation, but my vacation just got blown up because my team members can't be there and we got a project that's due.
That's great. I'm gonna go right back in that. But that's one of the things we talked about also is that for your revenue for that is go find a job you can work at night that's in that industry. So like you said Dunkin' Donuts, so I'm gonna go right back to Dunkin' Donuts. Means work there at night to find out how supply chains work.
That's exactly right.
So work there at night, see how this works. See how many people call and see how they do this. See how the operations is. I know you think you're better than they are at doing it, whatever that business is, but start to learn that. Learn who the suppliers are. And then do that. Then take the money you make there, save it so that you can open up your own business.
I think that's the benefit of also the gig economy, right? I mean, obviously we want everybody to be safe and you got to be conscious if, say, you're an Uber driver or a Lyft driver. But if I was sitting there now on an Uber and Lyft driver, I would be pitching my business idea, letting people poke holes in it. I'd be asking them about the businesses they run, because everybody's not going to be in business, but they're going to have some knowledge. And then I'd be asking them, so how do you guys order FedEx? Tell me something. Like, I just start writing questions down, and I would just keep asking people, because that learning, if you read books like Outlier and stuff like that, they tell you got to have 10,000 hours, which is the equivalent of 5 years, right? But you could speed up your 5 years by either working more or getting information from
another person who's done that.
Exactly.
That is exactly right. But no, it's so funny when you say that about Uber. I look at all the times when they give me a ride, people give me a ride at the airport around. They ask me what I do, and then literally ask me $100 at the end. I'm like, dude, I'm gonna give you a bill at the end. I'm like, here's your bill. But you see, when you start hanging around common people, that happens. Like I want to be more on the health orientation. So I started hanging around healthy people.
That's right.
Now I have somewhere I go almost every day or every other day to the person that does that. That's part of the business growth.
And I think when you become a business owner too, you think about things differently. Like if I was in the healthcare business and I was working Uber and Lyft, I would plant myself right in front of the hospital. And that would be the route I would run. And every time I got off the route, I'd shut it off, go back to the hospital and pick up another fare, because I want everybody that gets into my car to be a doctor, a nurse, a healthcare administrator, everything. But as a business owner, you start to think about, how do I get this information differently? Right. And you don't want to do that once you're in business. I'm not saying you don't do it when you're in business. I'm just saying that the more you can get up front, generally, I mean, we finance a lot of businesses. Last year, we financed 570,000 businesses. And so the key thing that we see with the ones that are successful is they've been there before, right. They got a parent that's been there before, they failed and restarted. Some kind of way they have that knowledge. I'm going to add something to you.
They kept learning.
They kept learning.
They kept, every time you got into a difficult position, because we're the same people. But my numbers ain't five. I'm not at 570,000.
It's all good.
Right? But every time we're going somewhere, the people that did good, like during this pandemic, there are people that didn't go, that went out of business. There are people that actually thrived during this, but you should have learned. We learned, everything is like a lesson. Yeah. There's no L. Losing stands for learning. Yeah. You need to be learning. Take everything as an opportunity, as an opportunity to learn.
Yeah, and we saw a lot of the businesses, again, that we finance, like you could tell the ones, again, that have been through something before, 2008 or something else. You know, they were a restaurant owner, they got shut down, they immediately pivot to the Uber Eats, the DoorDashes. They immediately started delivery services for liquor because they knew their margins or whatever. You know, whatever they decided to do, they did. And you could kind of see that those creative wheels started turning. The other side of this is what I think is obvious, but it can't be understated, which is what we talked about already. You got to save, and then you gotta have your credit in the right position, right? And credit is kind of this thing that we don't love to talk about. Right. But what I always share with people, it's just a video game, right? So while the kids are over there playing Fortnite or whatever they're doing, you should be over there playing, Credit Karma, or whatever game you want to play, right? Because it's just a computer, and once you start to understand how the computer works, 35% is on-time payments, 30% is length of credit, 10% is your mix of credit, and then you have a couple fives there. But that's all the game is, and so you start to learn how to play the game. Never cut up credit cards. Try to have things where you can have 99 months of credit. Different things that we've taught about in the
We're going to do that in the class. Actually, I want to come back to credit I'm going to bring it back to talk about credit because just letting you guys know.
Because I go to New York fast when I talk about it.
No, when you talked about credit, when we did that in our living room at church, I had so many business owners that were like, I didn't know this, or I didn't. And they're ones, a lot of things I learned about business credit, I learned from buying real estate, like from the different areas.
That's right.
And then from you, I learned those skills are transferable. So I'm going to come back to that.
That's
but hey, I just got to ask you this. Yeah. What are 3 challenges or 3 mistakes that businesses make when they first start out?
Yeah, I think the first thing, and this is kind of normal in kind of our communities, is not reaching out for help and or partnerships immediately. And so, that you see a lot of the more successful businesses have a partner that does finances, and one does marketing or sales or something like that. Or if you're in the supply chain, really having a good understanding of it. And then very quickly, the business owners who don't understand something, they bring on a board advisor, a board member, a partner, an employee, somebody that knows this stuff, and they recognize really quickly that this person could add value. Because if you're at a 4 in supply chain management, I mean, if it's me, I'd be at a 1. But if you're at a 4 in supply chain management, you're not getting to an 8 or a 9. And even if you were, you probably should take something you're an 8 at and get yourself to a 10, because that'll happen faster.
And then hire you someone. They said hire you someone that's an 8 or 9. That's much more. That's easier to do that than you do the 10,000 hours, as we said.
Absolutely, 5 years, right?
Yeah, it takes.
Why would you take 5 years to do something when you could hire somebody for it? And then look, I know the other side of that is capital. So I would say it's how we think about capital. We have a tendency to get the capital, spend it, and then try to get more. Or you find others are in the leverage. So they will get a grant, and a grant means you don't have to pay it back. It's similar to getting equity. Or they'll get a loan, and then immediately they're not thinking about how to kind of exponentially increase their business.
Right. Because it's like, I think people think of a grant as a capital infusion. Mm-hmm. It's like someone's literally giving you money.
Yep.
So this is something it's something I'm going to teach you. I'm trying to teach my kids this.
Right.
I'm like all the time. So like whenever we go to, if I ever take them out to an amusement park, whether it's Disneyland or they won't let me back in there anyway. But Legoland, whenever I take them to places, I count the money to them up front.
Yeah.
And I tell them this up front.
Yeah.
I tell them they got $20. I got breakfast. I got snacks already packed. And I give them a 10 and 2 5s. I don't give them a $20 bill because that can be broken. Right? And I say, now, whatever you got at the end of the day, I'm going to double it. So what they automatically think is it makes them learn to think down the road.
Yeah.
It's like when we get grants, we have to start thinking about that as a capital infusion and saying, how, if I got, let's pick a dollar figure, $10,000 grant, I don't think, oh, I got $10,000. I want to think, how can I turn this 10 into 20?
Yeah.
So then what product do I make right here and then make 20?
Yeah.
And then and you guys, that's starting. Personally, me, if you give me 10, I'm trying to make it to 50.
Yeah.
And I'm taking that 50 to 100.
Yeah, and I think that's part of, going back to partnerships, right? Because a lot of times we struggle because we're like, well, how do I do this on my own? Right. And it's the on my own. That's why I started with kind of the partnerships and the understandings, because if this is not something you have to talk to people to figure out how to get it done correctly. You don't have to kind of be out there by yourself. And I think sometimes the small business owners just kind of struggle. They feel like they got to know everything. And look, I definitely think there was a time, especially with African Americans in our history, where we didn't have the resources we have today.
Right.
But that's changed. And it hasn't changed to perfection, but it's definitely changed drastically, where we've got a lot more resources and a lot more opportunity. Again, getting back to the theme of the business service organizations, sitting down with people, letting people poke holes in your story, really starting to get your brain to think about, how do I build partnerships? How do I leverage? How do I get to that next level? And that's what I'm excited to see. And I give you an example, right? I mean, there's the infrastructure bills here, and a lot of people say, well, how do I participate? Well, I mean, could you deliver paper towels? Okay, if you could deliver paper towels, then you can deliver toilet paper. If you could deliver toilet paper, you could deliver the dispenser that the toilet paper is on. You could deliver the dispenser that the paper towel's coming out of. Oh, by the way, you could deliver the screws that are in the paper towel dispenser, right? I want us to start thinking differently about how we're starting to move and how we're starting to think about all these different things. Because right now, there's this moment where African-American businesses and minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, there are literally mandates for us to be in the contracts.
Right.
And so we can make everything involved in that contract, right? We can make the chair, we can make the fabric, we can make the stand, we can make the undercoating, we can make it all right now. We literally have that opportunity because there's such a hunger to find us and to find us that know what we're doing.
Right.
Just a really unique opportunity. I think the last time we had this opportunity was when affirmative action was created under Nixon. And so if you just look at the math, you look at the numbers, most cities and counties, their MBE, WBE percentages are 20%, 30%. The infrastructure bill on top of that is 40%. I just don't see another time in history where we'll have this opportunity.
Gotcha. MBE meaning?
Minority Business Enterprise, Women Business Enterprise, and WB, Minority Women Business Enterprise.
Right, and we see there's so many opportunities for that.
Yeah.
And doing that. Thank you so much,
Sure.
Everett. We want to bring you right back. This was really a blessing today to have this, and don't go anywhere. We're going to be doing future episodes. We're going to be doing one also in the area of credit, and we're going to continue to teach in this area. So again, thank you for joining us on SET-4-LIFE. Think about 5 people that you'd like to share this with, and then we'll see you on our next episode.